Okay, so this is question number 9. Been a lot of you have asked and shown, and I actually didn't remember. Took me a minute. Anyway, find a polynomial f of x of degree 3. That means that's the lead exponent, degree 3, with real coefficients and the following zeros. Well, whenever you have an imaginary zero, you also have its conjugate zero. These are called complex conjugates. Complex conjugate pairs. Conjugate. I think it's actually not sure with a C or a G. Conjugate pairs, okay? So whenever you have 1 minus I, then you also have 1 plus I. If you had 1 plus I, then you have 1 minus I. If you have 2 plus 4i, you have 2 minus 4i. Because when you do the quadratic formula, you always have plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, right? That's where your I comes from. So it's always a plus I or a minus I. There's a little understanding for you. So knowing that, now we can easily see what to do, because if these are the zeros, so you have these zeros, you have, that wasn't nice. Hang on. Okay, you have these zeros, you have 1 is a 0, and 1 minus I is a 0, and so 1 plus I is also a 0. So the factors, and yes, you do got to go through steps to get to where you got to go. The factors here would be x minus 1, because that's what equals 1, right? X equals 1 when this is the factor. And then here you have x minus 1 minus I, and you have x minus 1 plus I. Okay? So, and these are the other factors. And so if we were to multiply all 3 of these times each other, we would have x minus 1 times x minus 1 minus I. I'm going to treat that like that's one thing. And x minus 1 plus I. So now I'm going to simplify, remove these. Well, I'll wait till after I do this next part to do that. So now I'm gonna come back up here, okay? And I don't need to know 1 minus 1 plus. We've already used that, okay? So when I multiply this, I'm going to start with this. If you want to, you can use the rectangle. Or you may be using FOIL by now. At some point, using FOIL to do this kind of stuff is going to be easier for you. Mr. Gould will show you and you'll be like, oh, that's easier. Well, it's easier because you know the pattern. So x and negative 1 plus I. Okay, I thought I set that to... and x negative 1 minus I. Okay, so this is going to give you x squared. This is going to give you, and this is kind of what makes it neat, negative x plus ix. This one gives you negative x minus ix. So right here, when you add these two together, this is going to cancel out. So there goes your I. And negative 1 plus I times negative 1 minus I, a squared minus b squared equals a minus b times a plus b, right? So here comes that old difference of squares again. So I get negative 1 squared, negative 1, and I get minus I squared. But I squared is the same as saying the square root of negative 1 squared, which is the same as square root and square undo each other, which is the same as just negative 1. Okay? Now this is minus that. This is minus I squared. 1 minus I squared. Okay? So minus negative 1. That's 1 plus 1. So this is a 2. Okay? Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1 minus I squared is the same as saying positive 1 minus negative 1, which is the same as saying 1 plus 1. I know it's as easy as 1 plus 1. Okay, all that said, what we want to have is 1 plus 1, so that's 2. So here now we have x minus 1. I know it's involved. What did you think? Times x squared minus 2x, right? Negative x and negative x minus 2x plus 2. Now, yeah, this is math. I like this. This is fun. Now I'm going to take x and multiply it through. X times x squared is x to the third. Let me do this lower. X to the third. X times negative 2x squared. X times plus 2, plus 2x. And then negative 1 times x squared, negative x squared. Negative 1 times negative 2x is positive plus 2x. Negative 1 times positive 2 is minus 2. Okay, so we have x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 2. Woo! Okay, and I am not even going to try to enter that on my iPad. I don't know how you kids do it. Oh my goodness. I guess I have no choice. Negative. Oh, I don't even remember where I was. Okay, anyway, it works. So, take a picture. It lasts longer. So this is the answer. It's a little math. It's fun math. You'll have to do it next year, so, you know, hopefully I can help you learn it, and it's easier because I did. And it's without so much cost as it may have with it next year. Anyway, thanks.